It's time to spin the wheel of mythicality. So, never has there been a more cruel game than Long Live the Queen. And that title is also very cruel and very ironic. I've been playing this game lately. I got it a while back, and I played it a little bit a while ago, but I've been playing it more lately. I kind of forgot that I had it, and I've been playing it again. And it's brutal. It doesn't look like it would be brutal. Like, look at this game. This looks like a totally, like, you know, a totally innocuous experience, right? No. That's where you'd be wrong. So you play as this princess, and it's sort of like, it's kind of along the same lines as that game that I talked about, Suzerain, or the game where you play as the president of that fictional country. In this one, you play as a princess of a fictional country. I don't think I'm a big fan of the whole, like, RPG or JRPG style of video game, but what I'm finding is actually I can kind of get into the more what you could call visual novel or like choose your own adventure kind of thing. For some reason the RPG thing doesn't do it for me, but that does. I think the RPG thing is like in this awkward halfway point between being a regular game and being like a choose your own adventure, and it doesn't compute for me. Like, the whole turn-based combat doesn't compute for me. It's sort of like e-bikes. I don't like e-bikes because they're in this awkward halfway point between being a bike and a motorcycle, and I just can't, I don't understand it. My brain doesn't like it. But I can dig this kind of game. I loved Suzerain, and I actually kind of dig this one, Long with Live the Queen. Although it's not quite as sophisticated or interesting as Suzerain, but it's fun. But man, is it brutal, because the thing is, okay, here's the thing. You play as the princess, and you're 14 years old, and when you become 15, I guess, you're gonna be the queen. So you have to, basically the goal is to survive until your 15th birthday, and that is way harder than it sounds, because this game is like just trial and error. You just have to lose at this game over and over and over until you can figure out how to win, and I don't even think I have won yet. I might have a long time ago, but in this recent round of playthroughs I haven't been able to win yet. And so basically you're just watching this princess who you grow to care about and love just die over and over and over. And you think you got through the last thing that was gonna kill you, and you're like, oh, thank God, okay, I'm on the right track. And then immediately something else, something you didn't expect comes along, and you're dead. So yeah, the title, Long Live the Queen, is quite ironic. But the way you play the game is that there's like, there's basically 3 different sections that repeat with every turn. So you have a story section where the princess is talking to other characters in the game, and sometimes you'll have to make decisions in those conversations that affect the gameplay, but not always. It's not like Suzerain, where with Suzerain the vast majority of the decisions you make in the gameplay happen in conversations, and that's something that made that game feel very realistic and interesting, was that there was a subtlety to the art of having a conversation. In this one, the conversations are not the most important bits. It's the whole process of education. So the main part that you're going to be putting the most focus on in the game is what your princess is going to learn each day. Or each week, I guess. Because each turn is like a week of her study. And there are so many different classes. There's a whole bunch of, there's several different categories of class. I think there's like 15 different categories or something absurd. And in each category, there's 3 different classes. And you can only do 2 classes per term. So you really have to economize and focus on like which skills do I need to learn now. And you have history, you have economics, you have intrigue, that's a category. You have medicine, you have faith, you have magic, you have military, you have weapons, you have agility, you have royal demeanor, you have conversation, you have animal handling, you have expression. The list goes on, and those are just the categories. So within each category, you have 3 distinct classes, which are 3 distinct skills. And you'd think, okay, all I need to do is focus on leveling up on just the few distinct skills that I think are going to be the most important, right? Wrong, because you reach a point where you get to 50% of what you can do, and then you have to level up the other skills in that category to 25 at least in order to move past that 50%. And so you have to waste a lot of time doing stuff that you don't even necessarily think you might have to use. And so it really forces your brain to like economize for the time that you have and think, okay, what do I need this princess to learn? And you're always, in the conversation sections of the game, you're always facing these tests, these little tests, like there'll be something that the princess has to do, and you fail like most of these tests. It's brutal because it's like the game tests you in all these areas that you didn't expect to be tested in, and then it's like, well, I didn't have the time to do that class that I needed to learn that skill. And sometimes even if you learned a little bit of that skill, you didn't learn enough to pass the test, and it impacts what happens to you in the game. And so you really feel kind of helpless for a lot of it. Like you're really just sort of lucking your way through everything. And so in that way, I do think it does kind of a good job of putting you in the shoes of this princess who's 14 and has a whole lot of pressure on her. She doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know anything. She has to learn everything in a year. But just the dying, the constant dying in every playthrough. And then you gotta, okay, well, whatever mistake I made then, I have to figure out how to correct it. But the thing is, if you try to correct it, you have to make sacrifices in what you're gonna put your points toward. And so it's hard to really economize properly. It's hard to know what's going to be important for later, and so it really is a trial and error process. And there's a whole other aspect of the game, which is the mood of the princess. So the princess has 8 different moods that she can be in, and they are on 4 different sliders. And so the sliders go from one mood to the opposite mood. And so like anger is the opposite of fear. Cheerfulness is the opposite of depression. Then willfulness is the opposite of yielding. And then the last one is pressured is the opposite of lonely. And so you got to balance these sliders to get different advantages in the training. So like if your princess is feeling very willful, then that gives you an advantage when learning military stuff and learning weapons and intrigue, stuff like that. And so you can learn that stuff faster if your princess is willful. And so you have to keep track of your princess's mood, because like if she's in the wrong mood for a certain activity, that can actually give you a penalty and you won't learn that skill very easily. And then if she gets good enough in a certain category, she gets well-rounded enough within the category with all 3 skills, then she gets a new outfit that she can wear, and that outfit just gives her a general boost in that category. So you can like put on the outfit, and then you don't have to worry so much about leveling up in that category. You can focus on other things because the outfit is kind of protecting you to some degree, which is kind of a good idea, honestly. Like there's this sort of like it's a very girly game, and it's got this sort of girly kind of Barbie aspect of you have to wear these different outfits, but there's an actual gameplay reason for needing to wear the different outfits, and what outfit you wear can actually impact what happens to you and whether you live or die. So it actually is kind of important, and I like that they took this kind of what on the surface would normally be just this really kind of frivolous, girly element in the game, and made it an important part of the strategy. And so, you know, I talked about there's the story part, and then there's the studying part, but then there was also that third category of gameplay that I talked about, and this one's very simple. It's after you've done your studying, then there's a story section, and then after the story section, you have to decide what you're going to do with your weekend. And basically that amounts to going to different parts of the castle, and that will, whatever you choose, will affect your mood. And so, like, if you go to the dungeon, depending on what your mood already is, if you go to the dungeon, it might make you more willful and afraid, for instance. And so choosing what to do with your weekend is important because it helps control your mood, which controls what advantages and penalties you'll have in the studying. And also sometimes you can go to different parts of the castle to talk to different characters, which will advance the story in different ways that might be advantageous to you. For instance, like if you want to learn magic, you have to open up that story line by talking to these different characters to get that skill tree opened up. They're not really skill trees, they're categories with skills, 3 skills apiece. But you know what I mean. But yeah, it's a pretty good game, and it is kind of replayable. I mean, when you've played it a few times in a row, then you can kind of skip a lot of the story sections because you know what they're gonna say. So it is kind of repetitive in that aspect. But there's always this desire of like, okay, I made a mistake last time, I got killed. What do I have to do differently this time? And so there's always this kind of feeling of like, I can do better, I can improve this. And so, yeah, it is frustrating when then something kills you in the end, something you weren't expecting, something you weren't paying attention to. Oh, I should have leveled up in that skill, but I couldn't because I was so focused on these other ones that I needed. It's hard. It's not an easy game, honestly. It's like, it's more challenging than it looks, but it's kind of fun. Anyway, that's VEDN Day 15. I'll see you tomorrow for VEDN Day 16.